Hey guys, I just got home from work, thought I would run out to the garden quickly to do a combination video for you. Second gardening tour of the 2022 gardening season slash harvesting season. So it is early in the gardening season for me, but there is still lots to harvest out here. And I want to get it into the kitchen because I know in a couple days I'm going to have a bit of free time and I'm going to be able to preserve what I harvest today. So speaking of kitchen days, let me know below in the comments section if you would be interested in seeing what I'm going to do with what I harvest today. I have some pretty cool ideas. I've never done a kitchen video before, but if you're interested in spending 30 minutes with me while I show you some of the things I'm going to do with my harvest, then let me know. So we are currently in the raised bed garden. So I'm going to show you a couple things in here that I thought were pretty cool to me when I just walked out here. And then we're going to harvest some rhubarb. So let's get harvesting. In my first gardening video, I mentioned that these were squash plants, but I couldn't recall what they were. I didn't have my garden map with me. I can tell you that these are spaghetti squash and they are loving this area. There are already a good handful of squash growing here. They seem to like this area where they have a bit of sun during the day, but you know, once it hits around 3:30, 4 o'clock, they start to get some shade and they like the shade as well. So all along here in this bed is spaghetti squash. And so I really like growing spaghetti squash because they are one of my favorite squashes that actually keep. I don't have to do anything to them if I don't want to. I can just put them in the cold cellar and they stay the best out of all of my squash. So one of the things I'm going to be harvesting today are peppers. So I'm just going to take this one here. It's a pretty good sized pepper. And basically what that will do now is allow that pepper plant to put all its energy into growing a bigger plant as opposed to one particular pepper. This is a complete change from garden tour number 1. So these are my fava beans. They are growing amazingly fast. Every time I come out here, I find that they have changed and grown inches, like literally almost every day they're growing inches taller than they were. They're just doing fabulous. And then here are my 2 short stuff sunflowers, which look so pretty. And I have to say that I'm really happy that I planted them here. Last year I planted Mongolian giants, I think it were. And they actually shaded out the garden too much. So I'm really happy that I did the short stuff ones. I can't remember if I pointed out my sorrel that I have, or sorrel. I'm not sure exactly how you're supposed to pronounce it, but it is a perennial lettuce. And I have allowed mine to go to seed. And it is literally taller than I am. I'm about 5'4" and a quarter, and this is taller than me. So I'm gonna have so many seeds on this to share with family and friends. Next to that, we have our rhubarb, and I'm going to be harvesting this today. I have some bananas that have started to go beyond what we want to eat. So I don't want to say bad because they're still good, but they're extremely soft and the skins have gone almost black. So I actually peeled them all and put them in the freezer. So I want to harvest some of this rhubarb so that I can make some rhubarb banana bread. We have a friend coming over, or a friend and her husband coming over on the weekend, and I want to be able to put that out as a little treat we can have at the end of the night with our drink of choice. So let's get harvesting. So the way that I like to harvest my rhubarb is just by taking the stalk in both hands and pulling. Now, sometimes when you have a really big one like this, it is a little bit tougher to pull, so you need a little bit of muscles. But usually what I'll do is I will cut off the actual leaves and make a pile of them. Sometimes I will use them around my garden or my raised beds in some of the walkways, and then I'll put wood chips on top of them. It just helps to suppress the weeds that I get. So let's do a bunch more. Okay, I think that's all I need for the bread that I'm going to make. I probably will come out here this weekend and probably harvest the rest of it. I'll probably chop it all up and put it into freezer bags and put it in the freezer so that if I want to use some later on throughout the winter season to make crumble or really anything, then I can just pull it out and use it then. I almost left this area and then realized that I have a couple zucchinis in here. So we're going to harvest those too. The way I like to harvest my zucchini is usually by cutting it off. I find that this is less invasive for the plant. I usually just make a couple slices on the stem, wiggle the zucchini off a bit, and it comes off without damaging the plant in any way. Okay, so here we have our, I believe these are the starbursts or sunburst. And so I usually eat these very similar to a zucchini. Sometimes I have actually sliced them in half, or not in half, but I've taken the top off, scooped it out, and then stuffed them and baked them, and they are so delicious. So there is one more over here. Like seriously, look at how cute these are. Look at these berries. Oh my God, they just pull off so easy. Oh. Gorgeous. So my husband and I had a conversation roughly 4 weeks ago when the raspberries were just coming in around the pool fence, but they were coming in at almost an invasive speed, to the point where we talked about what we were going to plant around the new pool fence once we had that installed at the new property. And one of the things that we had both agreed on 4 weeks ago was that we were not going to plant raspberries around the pool fence. Fast forward to this weekend, where we are laying by the pool having a nice Sunday afternoon, and we're, walking around, pulling the raspberries off of the plant, eating them there through the fence, eating some sugar snap peas. And we both agreed that we were indeed going to plant raspberries around that pool fence, because what is better than laying by the pool, enjoying a cold drink, and being able to pull hot or warm, sun-kissed raspberries straight off the plants. There's nothing better. It's about 7:30 at night, ran inside, had a quick bite to eat, thought I would come back out and finish off this video so that I can edit and upload it for you in the next day or two. So the next thing that we want to harvest is the peppers. So consistently, year after year after year, I find that my pepper plants will produce peppers really early, and to the point where the actual plant almost is stunted. It doesn't grow, but that pepper will still continue to grow. So every year I pull off those peppers to allow that plant to, send all of its energy into producing a larger plant, which then produces more peppers. Now, I don't know if the reason that this happens to me is because I top them. So it's going to be really interesting because I have 2 rows of yellow monster peppers. The first row, I actually topped my peppers back in, I think it was March. And the other row, I didn't top them at all. So I didn't prune them. So it's going to be quite interesting over the season to see whether or not the ones that I didn't prune actually start to grow faster and bigger than the ones that I pruned, or vice versa. Because the idea is that when you prune your pepper plants, you're forcing that plant to become more bushy as opposed to being a little bit more tall and lanky. So it's going to be quite interesting to watch that happen. So I'm going to harvest all of these peppers. I'm going to use scissors. I'm going to cut those peppers off. The plants are still fairly fragile. They're small, and I don't want to pull that pepper off and damage that plant at all for, the next round of harvest that I'm going to get for them. So let's start harvesting. So we're back. It's about 7:30 at night, ran inside, had a quick bite to eat, thought I would come back out and finish off this video so that I can edit and upload it for you in the next day or two. So the next thing that we want to harvest is the peppers. So consistently, year after year after year, I find that my pepper plants will produce peppers really early, and to the point where the actual plant almost is stunted. It doesn't grow, but that pepper will still continue to grow. So every year I pull off those peppers to allow that plant to, send all of its energy into producing a larger plant, which then produces more peppers. Now, I don't know if the reason that this happens to me is because I top them. So it's going to be really interesting because I have 2 rows of yellow monster peppers. The first row, I actually topped my peppers back in, I think it was March. And the other row, I didn't top them at all. So I didn't prune them. So it's going to be quite interesting over the season to see whether or not the ones that I didn't prune actually start to grow faster and bigger than the ones that I pruned, or vice versa. Because the idea is that when you prune your pepper plants, you're forcing that plant to become more bushy as opposed to being a little bit more tall and lanky. So it's going to be quite interesting to watch that happen. So I'm going to harvest all of these peppers. I'm going to use scissors. I'm going to cut those peppers off. The plants are still fairly fragile. They're small, and I don't want to pull that pepper off and damage that plant at all for, the next round of harvest that I'm going to get for them. So let's start harvesting. I don't know if you can tell, but this row here are the peppers that I pruned. This row over here are the pepper plants that I didn't prune. And so far, I can see 2 differences in the rows. This row here is lighter in color, so I don't know why they're lighter in color than that row, but they're also slightly bigger than those ones as well. And if I look closely at them, I can see that they're actually bushing out like I wanted them to. And so this one here is a really good example of how many stalks are going, and that's what I mean by bushing out. And so you can see flowers on there, which means that I'm going to be getting, let me just focus in there for you. I'm going to be getting a lot more peppers from these plants. This one, I'll be able to switch those tags back out and put them where they should be. This is the downside of planting 27 varieties, and basically, 18 of them are new to me. So I was just going to show you the waist-high raised beds quickly. I wanted to show you the change in them since I did the first garden tour 2.5 weeks ago. But as I turned around, I noticed something on one of the tomato plants that I didn't see a week ago when I pruned them, and I'm a little bit surprised by the size. So for those of you that haven't been following me, you're new here, I guess I should have introduced myself at the beginning of this video. I'm Sherry. And I have a challenge on with my brother-in-law Keith and my dad to grow the biggest tomato. Now, I don't think the one I'm going to show you is the biggest, but it's pretty big. Let's take a look. Okay, so these are blue cream berries. I don't know. I wonder if I got these mistagged as well, because they're so big, and I guess I assumed when it said berries that these would be smaller. Look at them. They're giant. Like, they remind me of the Oxheart tomato. Oh my gosh. Look at the size of them. I'm going to have to look back at pictures to see what the blue cream berry actually looks like. Fingers crossed this is the right plant with the right label. Let's go look at those raised beds. Well, my intentions were good, but I'm not sure that I did a great job at labeling, unless those really are supposed to be blue cream berries. But the name makes me think that they would be more of a cherry. I'll have to check that. Let's take a look at this. You can see behind me. Like, how gorgeous is this? Oh my gosh. Like, Tromboncino is growing. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Like, I'm in a jungle right now, and I absolutely love it. Let's turn over here. I want you to be able to see everything. Like, these plants are going gangbusters. Oh my God, I have to come in here and like tie some of them up. Okay, so let's look at which squash are growing. So this is the green striped squash. There's another one up there. Let's see, where are you, buddies? They're all hiding. All right. We have some baby pumpkins growing. Look! Look at how cute they are. So these pumpkins will turn orange as they ripen up. So think about how beautiful this is going to be with orange little pumpkins hanging from the trellis. Behind them we'll have the Tromboncino and the Repicante squash. Oh my gosh, they just love this area. Love this area. So we're just going to go by kind of quick. These beets really aren't doing well. I think we had a few days of extreme heat, and some of them are trying to come back, but they're having a hard time. So fingers crossed. Look at this. These are the edamame beans. They're doing great. Now I only have, I want to say I have 6 plants. For some reason I think I bought 6, but there's only 3 here. And like I said, I would never do again. I planted the other 3 somewhere and didn't make note of it. And so this box over here, we have our 2 sunflowers. I believe these ones might be Jokers or Lemon Queen. I can't remember right now. We got all the carrots in front of them. Beets, more carrots, kale. We harvested so much kale the other day. We cleaned it all, sliced it up, put it into the freezer so that we can do smoothies with it. Okay, so my absolute favorite type of squash for taste is the buttercup. Absolute favorite. And the first year that we were here, I was able to grow a lot of them. And when I say a lot, I'm going to say like maybe 10 to 12 of them, which really did feel like a lot because my garden was a lot smaller then. Since then, I have found that they struggle with where I had them. So I decided to grow them on my arch trellis, and they seem to love it. I can't believe how many are growing here already and how many flowers are here. If this was during the day, you would see a lot more flowers open to give you an idea of how many potential squash are going to be growing on here. And so what I've done is the buttercup squash, which is this whole mess right here, really needed more trellis space. So I've just been, showing this one really, I'll just pull him out, showing him really where to go and letting him use this trellis, because below it I have Kajari melons who are finally making an appearance. And what I mean by that is not that they're growing any melons or anything like that, but they actually have green leaves. The leaves don't look like they're dying away. They have flowers. So I'm a little bit hopeful there. And maybe they are doing better because now they have a little bit more shade. So with all of the vines growing, it is providing them a bit more shade, and maybe they just really like that. So on this side, and I can't tell you how good this smells over here. I happen to think it is the cilantro that is growing in behind here, which I have to tell you surprises me because I'm not a fan of cilantro. But every time I come over here, I really like the smell of it. The other thing that I wanted to point out is these vines here are for the cucuzza squash. Now that is an Italian squash, and all of the vines are nice and soft. All of the leaves are so soft, like almost like they are a furry soft. It is a huge difference to the buttercup squash that has pricklies all over the leaf stems. Like you don't even want to touch it. Okay, so we're starting to lose a little bit of our light now. It is nearing close to 8 o'clock. And it's time for me to head inside soon to watch Peaky Blinders with my husband. But the one last thing that I want to harvest before we do are the little onion bulbs that are growing at the tops of my Egyptian walking onions. So I want to harvest all of them. Last year I probably replanted 100 of these little tiny onions. And so I have Egyptian walking onions everywhere. This year, I want to harvest them and pickle them so that when we make charcuterie boards, or if we do Caesars, and my husband is amazing at making a Caesar. He puts bacon and celery, and he does like a shish kebab stick filled with pickled stuff on it and meats, and it's amazing. So I want to make some pickled onions that he can then use in his Caesars. So I took a bit of a clip before the sun was starting to go down of the onions. I just want to show you what they look like and why they got their name. I want to take a quick minute to talk about the Egyptian walking onions that I have here around the pool fence. More specifically, I want to talk about the ones that are right here in front that are laying down on the ground. So what happens is they get heavy, they fall over, and the little tips here, which you might think might turn into a flower like a regular onion, actually turn into a mini onion or a mini onion bulb set, and where you'll have maybe, anywhere from like 5 to 10 of them. And they will actually take root into the ground around them and produce or propagate more Egyptian walking onions, hence the name walking onions. One thing I want to tell you about these perennial walking onions is that they are maintenance free. And when I say maintenance free, I haven't watered them this year. Mother Nature has been watering these onions, and we go days without water. I water the rest of my annuals. I do not give these onions any TLC, and they keep producing. So not only are they a perennial, but they are maintenance free. So let's take a look here. Okay, so I just pulled off the top of one of those onions, and like I said, there's like little tiny onions, and I want to call them an onion set. I think they're bulbils or bilbols. I'm not sure. I just call them onions because that's what they look like to me. So I'll just show you this, and there it is there. I wonder if it will, let me see. It's not going to focus for me. It's a tiny little onion. It's going to be some work getting all these papers off, but in the end, it is going to be so worth it. So I just pulled off one small head off of one of those greeneries, and I got 5 little onions. And so if you wanted to grow more of these, you would just plant this in the ground, leave this greenery out, and as long as you never pull this onion out of the ground, you have a perennial onion. Now, there are times where you actually need an onion, and this isn't going to cut it, and you want to pull that Egyptian walking onion out, because there is a fairly good amount of onion bulb in there. Not like a Spanish onion or anything like that, but there is a good amount of onion there. So just remember that when you pull those out, pop one of these off of it, throw it in the same hole, and next year you'll still have a perennial onion there. So let's get harvesting before I lose my sunlight. Okay guys, look at this. This is crazy. So again, if you want to see me do a kitchen day where I preserve these, how I'm going to do it, leave me some comments below. Let me know if that's of interest to you. If you would like to know more about these Egyptian walking onions, then I would suggest that you click on this video here. Thanks for spending time with me.